Welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. I'm Rico Beard, your host, and today going to try to tackle the House versus the NCAA settlement. And this was a very, very, very large settlement. Why? Because the NCAA knew that if it went to court, if this case went to court, they had no shot. Think about it. How badly the NCAA needed to settle this. They settled this for a little under $3 billion. That's how much they knew this wasn't going to work out in their favor. So, what does this mean? What does this mean for sports? What does this mean for the competitive edge in college football? Still trying to sift through all of this. A lot of this happened when I was on vacation, so it gave me some light reading to do on the airplane. But here's what I got. Some of the biggest winners are going to be you, the fans, and the boosters. Why? Because those NIL packages and try collectives and everything that you had to do to try to keep your favorite player on board with your team, they'll still be there. But now you won't be the breadwinner. Now your school won't be passing around a hat or a collection plate at church acting as if they're poor. They have money. Money's going to come as part of this settlement. I'll get to that a little bit later. But this means that now it's not up to the fans to keep the star quarterback, the star point guard, the star center. It's not your responsibility anymore, because if you don't pony up, he's going to hit the portal or she's going to go someplace else. This is now the schools. Now, here's what happens. Think of it as this. The NIL and the collective packages are now icing on the cake. They're what you could also do to entice a student to come to your school. Their deals that the student can broker themselves. That's not the main source of their income if they go to the schools. Schools are now on the hook to pay for players. It is now legal. It is the smartest thing. It was the biggest facade that I could think of for the longest. I never understood why schools were crying, oh, we can't pay the players, but you can. We can't do this, but you can. Hey, we don't want to, we were trying to keep the athlete and the student athlete, separate from, paying people. Well, guess what? That's over. We all saw through that. We all know now that was ridiculous. Now the Power Four schools can pay up to $20 million per year. So think of that as their salary cap, that they have $20 million to divvy out to their players. So now if player X says, I'll come to your school for $300,000, it's up to the school to try to cover that $300,000. Now, here's what could happen, as I mentioned earlier, with the NIL and collectives. School could say, okay, well, here's the deal. We're kind of close to the cap. We have $200 million. And then they could go to a collective or an NIL and try to work out a deal or broker a deal for that other $100,000 to try to get that student there. Some schools are now partnering up with corporations. You're going to see a lot of different things. Remember, this is still the Wild West. So it's almost better to step on some toes and step into a sacred rose garden and do something wrong and apologize for it later than to ask for permission of whether it's okay if we do this. So you're going to see a lot of weird things happening. Schools pairing with other businesses, trying to get a competitive advantage of getting the best players on the campus and keeping them paid. Now, it was something interesting that I did get from a parent of a top prominent player sent me a text message, and this may also be a win for you, the fan, because from what I understand, if I read this correctly, the portal is not addressed in this settlement. However, the new revenue sharing model gives schools the opportunity to sign athletes to potentially binding multi-year contracts. Most athletic directors who spoke to Yahoo Sports believe that this will decrease player movement. What does this mean? It means that when you sign up with a school, you're going to have to sign a deal, and you're going to have to sign a multi-year contract if you want to receive, hundreds of thousands to potentially millions of dollars. And why is that important? It means the portal activity that you see now will slow down tremendously, because now you are held to a binding contract. You've seen a lot of this with the Jaden Rashada and He's taking Florida to court. Well, now if you sign this contract, it won't be any gray area. It won't be any handshake deals. It won't be any wink, wink. Where we kind of discussed this and we wrote it on the back of a napkin. No, they're talking about potentially. This is going to be binding contracts, multi-year contracts that will slow down the transfer process. Now, if you make a mistake, just like anything, you want to transfer, you can, but you're going to have to break that contract with the school. And I'm assuming, kind of like anything, if the school really wants to get rid of you, they won't have any problem with you breaking this contract because, yeah, we are going to waste our money with you. We thought you were going to be a lot better than this, and you ended up being not so good. So, but yes, that's something else to look out for, is that the school is basically maybe having some binding contracts. As a part of the settlement, the school is expected to have the ability to purchase a player's exclusive NIL rights, a significant and possible binding deal, and one that would eliminate all third-party payment as well. This is from a friend of mine. I guess he got it from Yahoo Sports. So what does that mean? That means that the school could say, you know what, we're going to be your main source of this. But I think a lot of schools are going to be smart. They're going to farm it out. They're still going to keep the NIL. They're still going to keep the collective. They're still going to try to make this thing less painful as possible for them. So that's something that's the big winner. The players, they're also going to be big winners out of this because with the players, you're getting your guaranteed money. And I do think that it's going to be kind of slated as almost like a salary cap where every team is going to have a general manager, not necessarily somebody who could fire and hire coaches and assistant coaches, but somebody who's their job is to keep everything under budget and to keep all the players under budget. Now, school's going to have to decide, do you put a lion's share of the money in the existing players or do you go after, the incoming freshmen, the high school players, that hot shot recruit? Is that where the majority of your money is going to be? I think that you're probably going to see a lot of schools try to keep their guys in house, but especially if you get signed if the binding deal, that's less pressure of having to worry. I mean, but just think about it. You have, star freshman comes in, lights it up. You know that this player is signed to your school for at least 2 to 3 years. You don't have to sit there and sweat at the end of the offseason saying, well, maybe are they going to test the waters, see if they can get a better deal somewhere else? They've already signed this deal. So it's going to require parents, it's going to require the players to really do their homework and get some legal representation of what's best for them and try to maximize their value. So lawyers are going to get rich over this as well. So that's something else that you're going to see is, it's going to be a new class of lawyers who are really going to only be dealing with this. And hey, I think that it's not that far away to see, an agent or a law firm that's, basically will control, kind of like you see in the major sports where, one agent controls a majority of the league and as their clients. I think the same is going to start to happen with college sports as well. Now, this is going to hurt a lot of the group of 5 schools because you're not going to get as much money. This is going to hurt a lot of the non-revenue sports because I don't think that the schools are going to you're going to get the breadcrumbs. If I was running a university, this is going to sound bad because this is where people start screaming Title IX. But I think that this more so is, look, you kill what you eat. If you're not bringing anything to the table, you're not going to get that lion's share of the money. So you're going to see a lot of football and basketball, men's basketball and football programs get the money. Now, there's going to be some schools like Iowa women, UConn women, their women's basketball team, they're going to get some of this money. Why? Because they bring in a lot of money. Iowa basketball with Caitlin Clark brought in millions to the University of Iowa. And I think Iowa realizes that they're going to try to make sure that they can keep that money coming in. But if you're on the swim team, you're on the rowing team, you're on the tennis team, you're on the golf team, you are probably not going to get that much money. Whereas a lot of that money is going to go to the major sports. There will be some for those schools, for those programs, but not a ton. And where does this money come from? Well, it's coming from the most likely source, I do believe, and it's the smartest thing. It's not going to be a raise in tuition or anything like that, or raising your taxes. It's the TV money. Yeah, all of those billion-dollar deals that you see ESPN and Fox and CBS all signing, and Disney and all of the streaming networks signing up with the major schools. That's where it's coming from. So that's good because it does not hit the university pocket. It does not force the university to raise tuition. It's free money. Okay, think of it like that. It's free money, and of that, it ends up being probably about 20% annually of the money that they're coming in. That means, okay, that they get to keep 80%. If I told you you could keep 80% of your paycheck, everybody listening and watching this podcast would raise their hand and say, yes, I will take that. So think of it like that. When the school starts saying, well, how much that 20% is, it's not a lot to them because they get to keep the other 80% of the TV money on top of all the other money that they make. Do not feel sorry for the schools whatsoever. Now, what you may see happening is schools still want to try to cut back, and a lot of the mid-level people who work at universities in the athletic departments who are making like 100,000 or more six-figure salaries, they may become expendable. So if you're one of them, you want to make yourself worthy of sticking around, and I would do a deep dive, and I would become the capologist for the school and make yourself so invaluable that they will not get rid of you. But yeah, you're going to see schools now being able to pay the players. You're going to see some binding deals, which will mean less portal traffic. And it also means this. Now it kind of, you get a little bit of semblance of going back to the way things were. If your school can't recruit, then you're not going to get players. It's not so more, man, we just couldn't afford this guy, because you're all going to have the same amount of money. It's how you choose to use the money. That's going to be the difference. And if the aggressive schools are going to keep trying to be aggressive, and they're going to keep trying to bring in players, but you can no longer use the excuse, well, we can't afford this guy. Yeah, you do. You have the money. So you need to go out there. Now you got to recruit, and now you got to try to lock up as many players as possible. And as I stated, if this thing goes well, it will cut down on the amount of people jumping in the portals. Seem like daily, because you have a good game and you opt out. I mean, this fall, I often joke on the air with Mike and say, see me after week 5 when I know that this is going to be the actual team, that somebody didn't blow up in the first 3-4 weeks and decide to hit the portal. Well, now, once you sign this contract, potentially this binding contract, you're going to be there for a while. Mike put it best. I mean, think about it. If you're a Lions fan, Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs had these great years for the Lions in their rookie season. In the college football world, you do realize that both of those gentlemen could jump into the portal, and the next thing you know, you could see, Laporta playing with the Packers. You could see Gibbs playing with the Eagles. That's how ridiculous it was getting. So I hope that definitely slows down with this new bill. But that's what I gathered so far in reading this. And yeah, it's going to help out athletics. I think it's going to slow down the ridiculousness that was happening. But here's the other thing too. I think that slowly but surely it's going to bring an end to the NCAA. I think that you're going to see the NCAA go away, and you're going to see the Power 4 schools and eventually the Power 2, the Big Ten, the SEC, just break apart, form their own conference. You're going to see the Power schools form their own, championships, whether it's basketball related, whether it's football related. I don't think we are that far down the line from this happening. So, because let's face it, unless you were a fan of a smaller school, most people really only care about the Big Four. I know there's going to be some out there saying, yeah, I do. I care about Western Michigan. Hey, you know what? Western's going to have to try to figure things out for themselves. The directional schools and schools like that are going to have to figure them out for themselves. But for right now, the Power 4 schools, because the Pac-12 is gone. Power 4 schools have all the power. They got the lion's share. The group of 5 schools are trying to slow this settlement down, but they weren't successful. That's going to be another byproduct of this, is I think eventually a separation. Also, by the time you're watching this, there is going to be the annual camp going on at Wayne State. The basically it's the old Sound Mind, Sound Body camp. It's the 2-day national college event. It's going to be hosted by former head coach, former Michigan football player and head coach at Wayne State, Tyrone Wheatley. It's at Wayne State. And why is that significant? Because for anybody who knows me and who's ever listened to me, whether it was this or former shows or other podcasts that I used to do, Sound Mind, Sound Body was the huge event every year for high school recruits. It is now called the 2-day national college event. It's at Wayne State. It's going on. At least 5 head coaches from the Big Ten will be there to speak to the players, and they're going to bring their staff. And this is their chance to get to evaluate a lot of the top high school recruits in the country. They will make their way to Michigan. I think you're going to have Sharon Moore there. You're going to have Jonathan Smith there, PJ Fleck there, Walters, the Purdue coach, and Illinois coach is going to also be there. Brett Bielema is going to also be there as well. At least those are the ones that are on the register, on the list of coaches from the Big Ten. There's going to be a lot. There's over 40 coaches throughout the country. Big schools, small schools, HBCUs, all are going to come to Detroit to check out a lot of the top talent. They're going to be here. It's going to be Wednesday and Thursday. So by the time you're watching this, the camp should be going on at Wayne State. So if you want to drive down there, you go right ahead and check it out. But yes, just wanted to give you that little bit of that little tidbit as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing to the 5 Star Zone. As I said, when things pop up over the summer, I will get them to you. As I do a little deeper dive into this settlement, I will come back to you. But as of right now, if you're a college sports fan, this is a good thing for you because it's not up to you to make sure your school can hold on to top recruits. It is not up to you to make sure that everybody's happy and to keep those players on your team. And if this thing goes as planned, it looks like you may see some binding deals with the players and the university. So stay tuned. We'll keep going through this. This is all still relatively new. Thanks for listening, watching, subscribing. Tell your friends, and I will see you guys later. But as for now, I'm Rico Beard. Thanks for watching the 5 Star Zone.